today on Online for Authors, I'm chatting with Robert Wolf. He is the author of Not a Real Enemy, the true story of a Hungarian Jewish man's fight for freedom. Welcome, Robert.
Hi, thank you for having me. Much appreciated, Terry.
I am really excited to have you here today. Before we really delve into everything, can you give everyone just a quick elevator pitch about what is this book about?
Well, it's called Not a Real Enemy, the true story of a Hungarian Jewish man's fight for freedom. If I were in an elevator, I'd be either giving a copy away or telling people about it. So there it is. I don't want to be too flashy or too pushy or whatever. But it's an adventure. It's a biography about my dad. It's also a history book that covers Hungary from World War I, little known Hungary from World War I to the end of the Hungarian Revolution, 1956. The trials and tribulations of my dad and his family and friends that actually survived, and actually the many that didn't survive World War II and the Hungarian Revolution. It's an adventure, as I may have said, and it's just an all-around good read. It's it's anti-Semitism in the backdrop. The whole book. When I produced the book, I thought I couldn't have found a better time to produce this book. I couldn't have found a more relevant, more germane time. Unbeknownst to me, but my parents must have known sort of when they wrote this in 1970. So it's my dad's autobiography turned biography. Fantastic book, fantastic team, 4 awards, 4 escapes. We'll go from there. Just those 2 sentence lines right there could be an hour discussion.
Right. So you said something that I did not realize. This started out as your father's autobiography. So he sat down and kind of wrote his life story.
Yeah, with my mom in the 1970s. So they cover the late teens, not much about World War I, but what his parents went through, thick and thin. And what my mom, not so much until she met my dad. But what my dad went through as a child and forced labor camp, and then just being Jewish in a very hostile country in general. But they wrote the book, they wrote their story, the autobiography, in the 70s as though the events had happened the previous day. It was clear, it was crisp. The smells, the sounds, the sights. It was though they wrote the book the day before, and very, very good fidelity with it. And I took it and ran. I probably should have done it 20, 30 years ago, but it is what it is. I'm a radiologist and I've been practicing for 35 years. So, you've got work and family. It kind of it gets in the way. But the incentive was after both my mom and dad passed. My incentive once I read the book a second time, I thought, this can't be on a computer. This has got to go out.
So what was their purpose in writing it? Were they just doing this as like family preservation, let you know, or had they hoped to get it published?
Such a great question. Because who knows? Probably a combination of things. Probably just meant it for me. Knowing full well, which if you knew me 6 years ago, you'd say, this guy would never be doing this. And don't you hate it when your parents are right? They knew full well that I would reproduce it once I read the story again, once I had a few minutes to do that. So I think it's partly all of it. They were Holocaust educators in their lifetime, not just Holocaust, but also history. And they were very well-rounded people. Museums, arts, opera, theater, travel, education, history, Holocaust, you name it. So they were always educating about it anyway. For me, I didn't really get the bug until the last 5-6 years when I read the book and said, oh my God, this book's got to be, can't be sitting on a disc. It's got to be out there. And God forbid, who knew that whatever happened 80, 100 years ago was going on now. It's trying to develop its ugly head again. And I feel like, and the disc called out to me, and I say this in a corny way, like Superman's kryptonite. When my mom passed away in 2016, I didn't think much of the disc at the time. A historian friend handed it me. And I said, okay, well, I was busy taking care of mom's affairs. Then I retired. Then I came back to work. And between reading cases, I started reading the book again and said, yeah, let's get this out.
This has got to go out. Right. I'm curious what it was like for you growing up as a child of Holocaust survivors. Did you feel that you were different than other kids and or was this just so normal in your household that it didn't strike you as different?
Well, to me, they didn't really. They just wanted me to get a good education.
Right.
They were happy that I was free and a young kid, spoiled. They always, as every parent wants their kid to have a life better than their own. I mean, this is incomparable.
Right.
Because we could talk about how spoiled Americans are, and I don't want to say, I mean, our military, our first responders, our nurses and doctor, we can go on and on. But as a country,
Yes.
we think that we're spoiled in some ways. No, I can't say that for everybody. There's a lot of people struggling in this country and elsewhere. But no, as a kid, and not so much. My parents had Hungarian friends, Jewish friends, Christian friends, but they also had Indian friends, people from Africa, from their travels, Asian friends, friends from all over. They loved meeting people. They loved learning about their lives. They were very engaging. They were very tolerant, which is part of my message in my book too, is that people need to reach out more. That's the other thing. But I grew up one of 3 Jews in a high school in suburban Detroit that was about 40% African American. So I was the minority. Most people didn't know I was Jewish. When we got picked on, it's because we were freshmen. We were just tiny kids getting picked on by the big boys. But by the time we were all seniors, there was, unless you're a real jerk, there was a certain respect for each other. The good athletes, the smart kids, the people that could sing. And so any name calling or any BS that we had between us, we left it on the field. I mean, we just left it on. That's how we were. And our nicknames were so crazy for each other. It's insane. But it's different than nowadays, where people are showing up every day calling for the death of countries and death of people.
Right.
So, which is what happened in my dad's book, and not so subtle way. And without all these witnesses, no lawyers, no cell phones, no TikTok, no minute by minute coverage.
Exactly.
There was nothing like that. And, the witnesses in my dad's lifetime, and with what happened, not just to him, but also the other Hungarians and the rest of Europe and the rest of the world, 50 million people died in World War II alone. So the witness was the next victim, essentially. So, and so, no, I didn't really feel it as a kid. I didn't feel racism. My school was well integrated. There were a few things, but we missed the race riots of the 60s and 70s. It was when I was growing up. My parents moved out of Detroit just in time. But it was part of, my dad got a job. Oh, the punchline, by the way, is he became an OBGYN and delivered 10,000 babies in the Detroit area. So that's called redemption. And after his parents were killed at Auschwitz, unfortunately, my mom, and his dad was a dentist, and he was a captain on a Red Cross ship in World War I. So he was a real threat to society. And my mom's grandfather was a rabbi, also perished at Auschwitz. So another real threat to society. He's just gone because you were Jewish. So that said, nothing like that growing up in Michigan. Now, Michigan's a tough state. It's one that I'm keeping an eye on closely since it's my home state. And there's, well, you know what I'm talking about. I'm saying it's peaceful now, but they were going to kidnap the governor. We've got a congresswoman in Michigan who's anti-Israel, for example, which that carries further to me. I mean, prove it that people like that need to read my book. I mean, and realize whether you're Palestinian or Jewish, and well, good luck trying to get people in Gaza to read my book, or North Korea or China. It's not going to happen that way. But if we can get enough people, and not just my book, other books like it, other Holocaust books, survival books, books about persecution, because that's
for people to understand what really happened and what can happen again.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people are under the impression that this can't happen again, that it won't
denial,
happen again.
Yeah, big time denial. So And the sad thing about this over the last few years, and reading about the last 100 years, and we know thousands of years, the way people find more ways to make others suffer, to torture each other, to make each other's struggle rather than being part of a team. In medicine, you're either part of the team or you're out. If you're not part of the team, people are going to get hurt. People are going to get injured. They're going to die. And you're going to lose your job and maybe get sued and all the above. But it's an intricate part of practicing medicine. But I think as a country, in the free world, Canada, Mexico, Europe, we have choices still, and let's make the right choices while we can. Exactly. And that is to be part of the same team. That is to be tolerant and to accept love thy neighbor.
Right. I love your title, and you have alluded to it, which is Not a Real Enemy. And as you were saying, your grandfather was a dentist, and he worked on a first aid ship. Your other grandfather was a rabbi. These were not people to be feared. They were not people out there that were hurting others. They were actually out there helping others, and yet that didn't stop the persecution.
It got my dad's father about a week's worth of life, but it wasn't much of a week.
Right.
He ended up in the original thing. They mentioned Mengele being the hit and miss guy. The famous Mengele
Right.
pointing. You go here, you go there. Some of the people that have reviewed the book have questioned because of the locale, so we kind of kept that out of the book. But in my dad's original writings, supposedly they meant Mengele. My dad's mother was taken straight to they incinerator, and they
Right.
and killed immediately with an orphan girl, which is a sad story too. They were trying to help out this girl that was lost and stuck with them on the train. And my dad's father told whoever that he was a dentist, he was a doctor, and he could be helpful. So they assigned him to cleaning out the stool, the fecal matter, and the waste from the barracks, and probably died of cholera about a week later. So, I hate to see people die, but at least he wasn't there months of starvation and torture and watching your friends perish one by one. And starvation, we just use the word starvation because still a lot of starvation in the world. That's a tough word. I mean, starvation it's a bad disease. I mean, it's as bad as all the others we can mention too. So he was there about a week, and so eyewitnesses, a miracle, one of many miracles in this book. I mean, I can't count the miracles. I mean, a cat had 9 lives. My dad had 30. I mean, that kind of thing. And this was one of them. Somebody who was an eyewitness found my dad months after the war was over and told him exactly what happened to his parents. So
that he knew.
So that he actually knew.
Yeah.
And a very sad day for him. And it's when you have to it's one of those times you got to put the book down.
Yes.
Auschwitz itself, and hearing and having him learn about it. And then all of a sudden you're an orphan and nowhere to go, no one to meet. Don't know where you're going to be educated. You're Jewish, so you're not employed. And the miracles that my dad went through, even after the war. And
I think that's something that struck me when I was reading. I've done a lot of reading. I think in my mind, and it's something that we tend to do, where we put like an end, a beginning and an end. And at the end of World War II, it was all over. And yet it wasn't. At the end of World War II, your father didn't stop suffering, because now he is in Hungary, which is going to be led by the Soviet Union. And there's just as much anti-Semitism going on as there was during the war.
Such a great point. I mean, because my dad's journey at this point, he was on the run when the war was over. This was his second escape already, and then he and his friend Frank, they did 2 escapes together. One in the middle of the mountains, the Carpathian Mountains, was their first escape, and that was the James Bond exciting everything but the skis, right?
Right.
Believe me, it's a tough, that one. You feel it. You're in there. You're as a reader, you are in that escape. It's you.
Yeah.
And then another one, their second one was in Budapest, right in front of Nazi headquarters. I mean, so the guts on these guys and the intelligence and the lucky timing. I mean, if you want to talk about split seconds, yeah, I'm lucky to be alive. My dad was lucky to survive. So, but after the war, my dad was still on the run as a forced laborer, and so he had nowhere to go. So he worked in a bike shop. Very nice Christian people that helped him, a lot of them. And thank God for that, because not everybody did. Some were sheep and just kind of went with the flow,
right?
And which is what we're trying to avoid here in today's world. But and the other forced laborers some were shot, killed. Some were on the death marches, which is what my dad was afraid of from his first escape, and which is why he got the heck out of there with his friend Frank. But the other ones were treated as prisoners of war, so they were in a POW camp. And my mom's uncle was a mucky muck in the Communist Party. He became a communist to survive. And he was part of the head of the economy at the end of World War II. And I don't talk about this much, but I found this document that he talks about, well, what are we going to do with the Jews at the end of World War II? And can you imagine us saying that now in the United States? What are we going to do with our Hispanic population? What are we going to do with our African-American population? What are we going to do with our Jewish population? We're struggling with illegal immigrants enough, so we got that on our plate. But can you imagine us talking about people that've been here for years and legal? So
and like, what are we going to do with them, as though they're
second class, not worth much?
Yeah,
just a big stamp. So they put them in farms and factories for the most part. And so many people were killed. My dad was lucky enough to get to medical school finally by quota. they allowed 10% of the medical school class to be Jewish population. So I guess we get a little of that in this country, but it's never really admitted. But I can't imagine. But my dad was lucky. Another great story is how he got into medical school. Just met the right person at the right time there too. But so he was finally allowed to go, and finally there was a sense of normalcy. But with the communist regime, the communist menace slowly taking over, they were drowning in that too. So they finally decided to get out of Hungary in '56 after the Hungarian Revolution. Enough was enough. Even though he finally got to practice medicine. And my mom was a med student too. She was 13 months away before they escaped, and unfortunately never went back. They ended up in Boston and then Detroit. But ran the blood bank during the Hungarian Revolution in '56 as a student. So not a lot of people know about that war. 2.5 weeks, 3,000 people killed, another 3,000 plus injured, refugees. Never mind this, and psychosocial scars. The cost. I mean, Budapest was destroyed, and so that brings me back to the World War II point you made. The cost, not just people dying, people missing limbs, the cost of PTSD, the cost of relocating, the cost of starting again, and worldwide issue too. So, but the Hungary part is just because my parents happen to be Hungarian and happen to have unique stories, and it's not just it's not just about this or that. It covers a lot of ground. So.
It does. I found it to be a very compelling story. It was a difficult read because the topic is difficult, but it isn't a difficult read because it wasn't readable. So I wanted to make everyone understand it's difficult to read about these kinds of events. The idea that people were being killed for no reason, and the horrible things that your parents had to go through, and those things that you read, that's difficult to read, but the story itself read it was very much alive.
A page turner, a lot of people say.
So
I agree. I mean, the times I had to drop it when I was first doing the project, of course, was the Auschwitz, the grandparents passing at Auschwitz, and a few other spots where I said I just had to walk away, and I
had to take a breath,
take a break, take a breath, and think about what we're doing here. And what this is about. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Every chapter's got its own little, it's got its own quirks, and probably there's at least 20 miracles in that book. I mean, I haven't actually counted by finger, but there's 20 there. I mean, it's amazing. And also the way my dad didn't get PTSD himself, nor my mom, and a lot of people do get that. And if I'm looking at the circumstances he went through, I'm not going to speak for most Americans, but I couldn't handle that. I don't know how I'd be after going through all of that. So,
well, I do know that a lot of Holocaust survivors who came to the United States and other places when they relocated did deal with PTSD and a lot of trouble becoming part of their communities because of all of the trauma and being able to put that aside. So it doesn't sound like your parents, I'm not saying they didn't suffer, I don't mean that, but it seemed like somehow they had a resilience that they were able to find a way to put it in a box or, off to the side and learn from it, but not let it.
Carry who they were. No, I agree. Resilience is a great word. Determination, focus, the redemption of it, the integrity, just staying on the path. I mean, and very hard. I mean, like I said, I couldn't do it, and I went to med school and did a residency and a fellowship, and I've worked in medicine for 35 years. So that's a discipline enough. I mean, and also say you're a military person. Let's say you're a career military person. That's a discipline. Can you get PTSD? Of course you can.
Yeah.
There are a lot, and a lot of survivors did have it. A lot of people did not document what happened to them, survivors or not, and a lot of people documented what happened to them and didn't survive, of course. But they were two of the most intelligent. I mean, I couldn't be luckier. Like, if you don't have good parents, you don't have good family, you've got nothing. And realizing after all they went through, I have nothing to complain about. This country has nothing to complain about. We wait in line an extra minute at the CVS drive-through, the McDonald's, this and that. A little traffic jam.
Those things. When you read this book, those kinds of things you realize are truly nothing.
Absolutely nothing. So I had my own little health issues recently, and that puts everything else in the back burner. Like what happened to me recently, I wouldn't wish on anybody. What happened to my dad, I wouldn't wish on anybody. And what happened to my dad could happen to any one of us is another point I like to bring up, because it could be a bad local government, state government, federal government, a bad neighbor, a bad business deal, a natural disaster, and of course a foreign government, which could change any or all of our lives overnight.
Exactly.
Food, shelter, on the run. And that's another thing, is on the run, the light at the end of the tunnel we like to talk about. No light at the end of the tunnel for my dad, even when he escaped. It's like, well, where are we going to go now?
Now what?
So
Right.
now what do
Right.
we do? So
right. There wasn't anything to go back to.
Nothing. No home. No. And that's a scary thought too. And not knowing your whereabouts, not knowing what's safe, what's not, what's captured, right, what's not. And like I said, their first escape was towards the end of World War II, both of those escapes. But the first one in the middle of the mountains, they didn't know who was winning the war. So they didn't know whether to try to make it to Vienna, to Austria, stay in Hungary. They didn't know, is the U.S. going to win? Is it Russia, Germany, right, Hungary? So, but in the back of your head, you're a Jew, you're screwed. That's what you felt like. And even at the end of the World War I, my dad's parents thinking that the White Terror, the Red Terror, Admiral Horthy, and the Jews, the poor Jews were like, well, he doesn't like me, and he doesn't like us. They don't like us.
It doesn't matter who. It doesn't matter who wins. We're going to be screwed.
Very sad.
Yeah, yeah. So you had your dad's manuscript. Did you do any outside research? Did you then go and do some looking and to see what you found? And what did that research look like?
Hours of research, actually. I mean, I learned more about my parents' life way after they passed away, of course, but also the wars in general. Hungarian Revolution, I did a lot of research on, a lot of photographs. And then, we did the original biography, but it was from first person to third person. It was just about word for word. So it was kind of dull. It was like, Dad did this, Dad did that, Dad was born right here. So, and I queried the book. I queried agents and publishers for a while, and we got nowhere with it. So, and that's a lesson to authors too, by the way, is it's okay to self-publish. Yeah. We were that close to self-publishing. We literally got our publisher, Amsterdam publisher, thank you, Lisbeth, bottom of the ninth, shoestring catch. I mean, literally, she was the last one we're going to query, and then we were going to self-publish. But that said, for about a year, between doing the book, which took about a year, and then querying, essentially struck out. But so then I sent the book to some beta readers, and I found the right one, Lisa Tenner, who actually just wrote a new book too, that Breathe, Write, Breathe, that I'm starting to read, and I think it's going to be a good book, but I can't say until I've read it. But she that's what she does, is she writes, and so she's connected. So she gives me Janice Harper, who's my co-author, happens to be a Michigan connection too. She got her PhD from Michigan State, anthropology is her specialty, but she's also a book coach and a professional writer. So I have her run with it for a year, and she did her homework above and beyond. I mean, the culture, the food, the history. She called history professors from all of that. I mean, above and beyond just rewriting the book. So, which she did a phenomenal job with, by the way. Turned a book into a real novel, parallel stories, converging stories, conversations, letters to and from home. That's and from there, if it weren't for Janice, this book we wouldn't be here. Like, this book wouldn't have gone as far as it has. So, so that was difficult. But yeah, so thank you to Janice, and then she helped me with the query, with the proposal package that we put together, and vetted out very selectively who we query, which is another piece of advice I give to authors: is don't just query anybody.
Don't throw noodles to the wall and see what sticks.
Correct.
Right.
Do your homework. Look for the person that might. And Amsterdam publishers, that's all they do, is Holocaust related, and like in our case, it extends to the communists, and some other cases about music. Some it's about food, dancing, Auschwitz, of course. Many different types of stories from many countries. My niche just happens to be Hungary. And there are a few from Hungary, but not many, at least through Amsterdam publishers. They did a wonderful job getting it out, and I'm very grateful to have the story out, and hopefully it's read for many years.
When you were doing your research, did you find anything that was really surprising to you that you did not know about beforehand?
Well, in the book itself, I didn't know my dad was beaten as a kid. I didn't know that, so that was he documented that too. So. No, a lot about the Hungarian Revolution. Most of it I didn't know. I mean, students started it. It was very young people that started it. How it started at the radio station. Parts of World War II also. I can't even remember. I mean, I've read the book probably at least 6, 8 times. But the anatomy, as we say as a radiologist, the anatomy of the geography in the area changed so much that you needed a program to keep up with it. So there's that kind of thing. But that part was research. So, and like I said, Janice did a lot of research too. But then when we queried our three professors that helped us with the testimonial, they chipped in with a suggestion or two. And then we had the whole book reviewed by Dr. Peter Black, who's retired from the United States Holocaust Museum, and he went through the book and made his changes. So, and he made a lot of changes. So we changed accordingly because who else is going to know? But yeah, a lot of little surprises. I can't believe how tough my dad was, and badass is the today's word. I mean, that's
right.
Yeah, you're a badass. And then when we lived in Detroit, he'd take us to the ball games in the worst section of town, this and that, leave the car there, me and my buddies, and Tiger Stadium, and where the Red Wings used to play at Olympia. Never thought twice about it. Just never. It's like after everything he went through, it was like this is
nothing.
They moved out of downtown Detroit for fear of urban blight. And
right.
That was smart too, but they didn't come to the United States to get picked on or bullied or
exactly.
So
exactly.
A lot of surprises though, a lot of surprises for sure.
When a reader picks up this book and has the read and they put it down, what are you hoping that they've gotten from it at the end?
Well, like I said before, what happened to my dad could happen to you or me or any one of us. That's something that. And I think a lot of readers have put themselves in my dad's place. They've empathized, and that's what happened to me too. I got the bite, so that there's that. Realize how good we have it in this country. Realize how good we have it in the free world. Let's stop messing around, as we say in darts, SFA. Let's stop this nonsense, and let's try to. I hate to say love thy neighbor. I don't want to be corny, but it's true.
Right.
These people protesting need to read books like mine. People like what's her name? I'm not even a fan. Taylor Swift. I mean, I don't know what's going on with her, but and some of these the athletes, the Kwames. I mix some Kanye's, who I couldn't name a song of his, but these guys are followed by a lot of people, and I think Roger Waters. I mean, I'm a big Pink Floyd fan, but I'm not a big Roger Waters fan because of his. But I think Roger Waters truly has PTSD. This is my guess. From what I understand from The Wall, and maybe his father was killed prematurely or whatever. I'm not really sure what happened with him, but people like that, of course, they're not going to read the book. They're pro-Palestinian, but if they did, but also more importantly, prisoners, and who else would want to read them? People that do hate crimes should do. I don't know about time. But it depends on the crime, of course, murder and certain other, of course, vandalism and arson. Yeah, I mean, but as part of their rehabilitation, definitely should read at least 5, 10, 12 books that are like mine. I think that would be very, very appropriate. It starts with education. I mean, I want this book to be taught in the classroom. Now, an 8th grader could come to one of my book talks, which are very well received, and I've got more coming, and I'm very grateful for every one of them. Yeah, kids, 8th grade kids, 8th, 9th, 7th grade kids can understand what I'm talking about in the book.
Yes.
Maybe they're a little young for the book, and they're too young for a 400-page book to be in their curriculum. But college classes, yeshivas, history, Holocaust, specific Holocaust education, there's room for the book there and in the curriculum. And then it'd be a good summer read too for high school kids. It depends on, But I want the message to get out. I think we should appreciate what we have and realize that hate is just not going to go away. But let's do what we can as a team in our Judeo-Christian society. And I got a lot of Muslim friends too, and Asian friends. Let's pull together as a team. Let's do that. I mean, so there's a place for it. There's a place for it. I mean,
I did a TEDx talk, and it was on this idea of we're more alike than we are different.
Absolutely.
And that if we could focus on the things that make us alike, the things that make us different don't matter as much. As soon as you've made a connection with someone on a level, it doesn't matter. You and I have connected on this book, and it doesn't matter that I'm Christian and you're Jewish. It doesn't matter. It's not a factor. It's a factor in who you are, but it's not a factor in whether or not we can connect and have a friendship. And I
love
think,
it. Yeah, no, I love the Christian services. I love I've got way more Christian friends than Jewish friends. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just
no, but I'm just saying, I think your book fits into that idea of, let's first of all learn about what's going on out there, and then, reach out and meet people. And as you meet them and you find out they're really not what you thought, if everyone had gotten to know Jewish people in general and reached out, would they have then been able to do what they did? And the answer is no. They were able to do what they did because they put Jewish people and termed them like animals or second-class citizens. And you can't do that if you've actually met them and gotten to know them and learned who they are.
Absolutely. DNA, and not just the humans' DNA, but other animals' DNA, very, very, very close. I mean, we all know that. So one little change can make a difference in all kinds of diseases, but our DNA is similar. And on that note, I mean, I'm not a DNA guy. I'm not a microscope guy. I'm more an anatomy because I do radiology in it. But for me, the body is such a precious thing. When you learn about cellular biology and what's going on besides the cell, and then the anatomy and the physiology, and you wonder how everything works so intricately, and it's such a beautiful thing how the human body works. And I'm reading about diseases, of course, and reading X-rays and MRIs about people with diseases, but it's just a valuable, fragile thing, the human body. And then these people, these killers, these people that like to torture, these people that don't think anything about maiming, destroying somebody's life, it's beyond my comprehension.
Right.
It's not how I was trained to think. I was trained to preserve life and health rather than just take it away in an instant. And I just can't buy into that kind of thinking. Unfortunately, it's less than 1% of the planet. I hope that if there's a sense of normalcy, it's a very small percentage of people. But let's go after one or two of those people. Especially if they commit hate crimes or whatever. You know what I'm saying.
I agree. So what's next for you, Robert? You're going to go around and you're going to do some talking. Are you going to do any more writing?
I got 3 books in the back of my head. Unfortunately, I've had this cardiovascular illness that's kind of set me back probably a couple of months. But book two would be part 2 of my dad's story, which isn't quite as harrowing, but it brings him from Vienna, Austria, all the way to Detroit in the 60s. There's enough material to do that. That would be kind of cool. The things they don't teach in med school, I hate to keep saying it because somebody's going to do that, but it's great. It'd be part autobiography. It'd be part lessons to the kids, the pre-meds. Right. They talk about a lot of things: partnership tracks, insurances, legal, investing, all kind. Med school itself, pre-med. It'd be a good book that, and I make it. It would have some humor, like House of God. I mean, it would definitely have some humor in it. It would have a lot of serious stories. My favorite stories about saving people's lives, that kind of thing. But it's in the back of my head, and it has been for years. And then the fourth one would be investing in a bear market. I'm no Goldman Sachs guy or Morgan Stanley guy, but I've been reading up on investments for 30, 35 years, and pretty guaranteed that I know more about it than, let's say, 95% of Americans, most likely. So I do my homework. I do my research there. It's kind of a hobby for me. I mean, save and invest. I think money is a big part of hate and prejudice as well. I think money definitely is a part too. So those are all in the back of my head. But no matter what I do, by far this book will be the most important book that I've written, the most salient, the most germane, and this may be the only one. And I'm still kind of working at it. I think you slipped in about what else am I doing, and of course podcasts. This is my 61st podcast, and hopefully I got a few more backlogged, which I had to put off, and I'm looking forward to that. This was a great podcast, by the way. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm doing book presentations. I've got a few coming up in the next few months, local synagogues. I would like to reach out to all these university presidents. I mean, I'd have no help. I just do it all myself. So it's an issue. That's something I would advise authors. If you get help, a personal assistant or something for correspondence alone, let alone social media, So
right.
It's overwhelming the amount of work. It's an infinite amount of work. So, but I'll take the invites, and there's a long way to go. There's synagogues, there's JCCs, churches, museums. I've talked to the Greek Orthodox Church, which was wonderful. I've done 20 TV and radio interviews because I had a PR person for a while. Very good, outstanding. I would highly recommend her. but it's an expensive process.
It
And
is, yeah.
doesn't necessarily monetize the book. So if you're Shaquille O'Neal or you're Bill Clinton and you write your autobiography, everybody's lined up to edit the
Exactly.
book and PR.
Exactly.
But if you're little Rob Wolf and little Ervin Wolf, then nobody knows. So I'm like scratching and clawing. And then after October 7th, my slippery slope went from here to like here. So, and so yeah, TV and presentations and the podcast. I think podcasts are a really efficient way to
I think so
the
too.
word. You know, I think somebody like you who's a book advocate and you're affiliated with a lot of people that like to read. So,
Yeah.
but I don't say no to anybody. You know, I have not said I've been reneged on, I've been canceled on,
Right.
and that's a little bit hurtful. But as a radiologist, I've got thick skin, so you know it's part of the business.
It is.
The affordability, turnover of staff. Some people just drop the ball. I've got too much. I got the radiologist mind. I got the scientific mind. Like I got to read every case. Whereas this is more of an arts and culture type of mind that you've got to kind of let all that go and just take what they give you. You know.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
It's a different animal.
So, hey guys, if you want to keep this book conversation going, head on over to Novels and Latte Book Club on Facebook. As a member of this amazing book community, you're going to have the opportunity to win a copy of Robert's book, Not a Real Enemy. So head on over, find the post, and you will be in the running. Robert, if people wanted to get up with you to talk with you about this book or to ask you to speak or that kind of thing, how do they get in touch with you?
Well, I have a website, robertjwolfmd.com. It's loaded. It's got tons of these TV interviews and podcasts. Not all of them, but plenty of content. Plus, it's got some separate videos about the Hungarian Revolution and World War II, and they're not long and overwhelming. It's a well done website. One of my best friends has helped me with it, and he's still with me throughout this journey, Mark, and he did a great job with so robertjwolf.com. If you want to email me, robert@robertjwolfmd.com, that'd be unbelievable. I would share my phone number with anybody who's serious about, book feedback. Right. This is how you're going to help me fight anti-Semitism, by the way. Invite me to a talk, do a review of the book. One person at a time, one thing at a time would really help. So, and the book, Not a Real Enemy, is available on Amazon, Walmart, Barnes & Noble, Tufts University, my undergrad alma mater. Saul Gittleman, professor there, he did a great review he's retired now, but fantastic review of the book. It's on sale at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C., which I'm proud and honored to say I'm going back next month for my second book signing. And I can't tell you what that means. That's the mothership. That's the pinnacle of what we do.
Yeah.
I mean, having my book on the shelves alone, pretty cool. And then already doing a presentation there, which I could do every day. Kids, families, that's what it's all about. So I'm going back there in October as well. And the book's been on sale there for quite a while. And also the Illinois Holocaust Memorial Museum, the Zeckelman Memorial Museum, the Zeckelman Center in Michigan, and also the Long Island, the Museum of Tolerance and Education Center, I think it's called, of Nassau County. So, and I'm doing a book presentation there in March. So hopefully a lot more coming like that. But yeah, Amazon is the easiest. You find it on Amazon. Not a Real Enemy, but it's every if you're in the neighborhood, someday all 50 states. I don't know if the book will ever sell in Arkansas or Montana.
I think it will. I think it should. It is an amazing book, and it taught me a lot. And it was a history book that didn't feel like a history book as you were reading it. It read more like a novel, and then knowing it was true is, I think, the part that just kept flooring me was, wow, this is true. This isn't just a James Bond kind of movie, right? I mean, it wasn't. This is real, and knowing that, I think that was.
I don't know who could think up this stuff. I mean,
no,
absolutely.
No.
So I called it a history light book when I was introducing it sometimes, but my co-author Janet says it's a history book. I mean, so
it is a history book, but it doesn't read like your traditional history books in school.
It's an amazing adventure. Yep. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say thank you so much for being here with me today.
God bless you. Thanks for spreading the word. Thanks for reading the book, and I hope that we get a few more readers and a couple of talks and feedback. Welcome. Please reach out to robertjwolfmd.com.
Yep, and it'll be in the show notes. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.